How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, January 24th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances that took place yesterday on Sunday, January 23rd. Taking a quick step back and looking at where we are at the top of this 2022 calendar year. First, looking at college basketball, college teams are in the middle of their college basketball or their conference schedules. They're actually in the middle of their actual schedules. They're towards the front end of their conference schedules. So they're right there. At the professional level, starting with the NFL, the amount of teams went down from 6 to 4 as the AFC and NFC championship matchups are set. In the NBA, of course, all teams are entering the second half of their seasons as they're still going through their All-Star voting stage. And taking a look at what's going on with soccer, we are entering the second half of the soccer schedules for Europe's leagues. And not to mention that the African Cup of Nations is in its round of 16, as the amount of teams that are competing for the title has dropped from 16 to 14. And after today, it will drop down to 12. Starting off with college basketball, looking at the third-ranked team in the nation, the Arizona Wildcats would go to Berkeley to face off against the unranked Cal Golden Bears. Arizona would beat Cal 96-71. They won this matchup by 25 after outscoring Cal by 21 in the first half. The third-ranked Wildcats were led in scoring by their starting center, Christian Coloco. Their starting junior out of Cameroon finished with 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks in 27 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field and 1 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the third-ranked Arizona Wildcats are 6-0. They're 6-0 in the Pac-12. They are 16-1 on their season total. They are the lone team in the Pac-12 that is still undefeated in the conference. So right now they are sitting at the top. With this loss, the unranked Cal Bears are 9-10. They are 2-6 in the Pac-12. Looking at the fourth-ranked basketball team in the nation, the Purdue Boilermakers hosted the unranked Northwestern Wildcats. Purdue would beat Northwestern 80-60. They won this matchup by 20 after outscoring Northwestern by 12 in the first half and by 8 in the second. On the winning end of this matchup, the fourth-ranked Purdue Boilermakers were led in scoring by their starting guard, Sasha Stefanovic. Their starting senior out of Indiana will go on to finish with 22 points in 38 minutes. He shot 6 for 10 from 3. All of his attempts were from 3. And he shot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the fourth-ranked Purdue Boilermakers are 16-3. They are 5-3 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the unranked Northwestern Wildcats are now 9-8. They are now 2-6 in the Big Ten. Looking at the 20th ranked team in the nation, the Xavier Musketeers went on to face off against the unranked Marquette Golden Eagles. Xavier would lose to unranked Marquette. Marquette won this one 75-64. They outscored the 20th ranked Musketeers by 7 in the second half in order to win this game by 11. On the losing end of this matchup, the 20th ranked Xavier Musketeers were led in scoring by their starting guard, Paul Scruggs. Their starting senior out of Indiana finished with 13 points and 7 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 5 for 9 from the field and 1 for 2 from 3, as well as 2 for 4 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the unranked Marquette Golden Eagles were led in scoring by their starting forward, Justin Lewis. Their freshman out of Baltimore would finish with 20 points and 13 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 7 for 14 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the unranked Marquette Golden Eagles are 14-6. They are 6-3 in the Big East right now. With this loss, unranked Xavier is 14-4. They are now 4-3 in the Big East. Last but not least, taking a look at what's going on with the 21st ranked Providence Friars. They hosted the unranked Butler Bulldogs. Providence beat Butler 69-62. They won this matchup by 7 after outscoring Butler by 6 in the first half. On the winning end of this matchup, the Friars were led in scoring by their starting center, Nate Watson. Their starting senior out of Virginia would go on to finish with 18 points and 7 rebounds, as well as 2 blocks in 25 minutes. He shot 7 for 12 from the field, a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line as well. With this win, the 21st ranked Providence Friars are 16-2. They are 6-1 in the Big East. They have the best record in their conference. They're the only team that has only lost 1 game in all of their conference schedule so far. With this loss, the unranked Butler Bulldogs are now 9-10. They are 2-6 in the Big East for now. Taking a look at what's going on today in college basketball, is starting at 9, the 7th-ranked Kansas Jayhawks are going to host the 18th-ranked Texas Tech Red Raiders on ESPN in Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas enters this matchup with a 5-1 record in the Big 12. Texas Tech is 5-2 in the Big 12. And then the other matchup is going to take place at 11 on ESPN2 as the 16th-ranked USC Trojans are going to host the unranked Arizona State Sun Devils. USC enters this matchup with a 6-2 record in the Pac-12. Taking a look at what's going on at the professional level in the States, starting off with the NFL. And in the divisional round has now come to a close. There are now 4 teams left that are competing for Super Bowl 56. Starting off with the NFC matchup in Tampa Bay. The defending Super Bowl champs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, hosted the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams would end up beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 30-27 as the Rams outscored the Buccaneers 20-3 in the first half. The Buccaneers outscored the Rams 24-10 in the second half, but the Rams would just keep it out of arm's reach and then win it on a last-second 30-minute field goal from Matt Gay. But of course, going through the scoring itself, Matt Gay started with a 26-yard field goal to put the Rams up 3-0. Their first touchdown was a 7-yard touchdown pass from Matt Stafford to Kendall Blanton. And then the Buccaneers would end the first quarter on a 45-yard field goal from Ryan Suckup, so it was 10-3 Rams at the end of one. The Rams started the second quarter with a 70-yard touchdown pass from Matt Stafford to Cooper Kupp, as that made it 17-3, and then their 40-yard field goal made it 20-3 going into the half. Matt Stafford's touchdown run made it 27-3 to start the second half, and then the Bucs would kick a field goal to put themselves down by 3 touchdowns. And then Leonard Fournette's touchdown at the end of the third would put them down 27-13. With about 3 minutes left, Mike Evans would catch a 55-yard touchdown pass from Tom Brady to put them down by a touchdown. And then the Buccaneers would drive back down the field. Leonard Fournette would run the ball from 9 yards out into the end zone to tie the game up at 27. And then Matt Gay's 30-yard field goal. As the Rams had 42 seconds to drive the ball down the field, they were able to do so, and they were able to advance their way in. And it's just that hard. You need all of that and a last-second field goal in order to beat Tom Brady in his 40s in the playoffs. I'm taking a look at how both teams fared on the losing end of this matchup in their final campaign of the 2021 season. The NFC South champs Tampa Bay Buccaneers were led by their goated starting quarterback Tom Brady, the 7-time Super Bowl champ out of Michigan. He would complete 30 of his 54 passes as he threw for 329 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. The Buccaneers' leading rusher was their starting running back out of LSU, Leonard Fournette. He finished with 13 carries for 51 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 56 yards through the air, so he would combine for 107 total yards of offense. Their elite wide receiver, Mike Evans, would lead the team in yards. He had 8 receptions for 119 yards and the team's lone receiving touchdown. Their future Hall of Fame tight end, Rob Gronkowski, finished with 4 receptions for 85 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, their leading tackler was Levante David. He finished with 11 of them. Vita Vea would finish with 3 tackles as he had one of the team's 2 total sacks. And on the winning end of this matchup, the Los Angeles Rams, the 2021 NFC West champs, were led by their starting quarterback out of Georgia, Matt Stafford. Stafford will complete 28 of his 38 passes as he threw for 366 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 6 yards and an additional touchdown. That is 372 total yards and 3 total touchdowns for Stafford on the day. Their leading rusher, Cam Akers, had 48 yards on the ground and 20 yards through the air. That's 68 total yards of offense. Their elite wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, had the most receiving yards on the day. He had 9 receptions for 183 yards and a receiving touchdown. Odell Beckham Jr. out of LSU finished with 6 receptions for 69 yards. Tyler Higbee finished with 4 receptions for 51 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, David Long Jr. out of Michigan, who went to Loyola High School with me, and then Darius Williams, each finished with the team high in tackles as they had 7 of them. Their elite defensive end, Von Miller, finished with 4 tackles as he had a sack and he recovered a fumble. Their goated defensive tackle, Aaron Donald, finished with 5 tackles as he had 2 tackles for loss and a sack. Leonard Floyd would finish with 4 tackles as he had a sack as well. Nick Scott would finish with 5 tackles as he had the game's lone interception for the Rams. With this win, the LA Rams are now going to host the San Francisco 49ers in the conference championship round. Their matchup is going to be the second matchup on Sunday as their game is going to be at 6:30. Taking a look at the second game from yesterday, the reigning AFC champs, Kansas City Chiefs, hosted the Buffalo Bills, who are the 2021 AFC East champs. The Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills 42-36 on some late game heroics. Both teams were tied at 14 at the half, and then the Chiefs would go on to be even with the Buffalo Bills at 22 in the second half, and then the Chiefs would win the coin toss, drive it down the field, and score on the very first play. That's virtually how the game went. Going through the scoring, just scoring play by scoring play, the Bills opened up the scoring on a 1-yard touchdown run from Devin Singletary. The Chiefs tied it up with an 8-yard touchdown run from Patrick Mahomes, making it 7-7 going into the second quarter. Patrick Mahomes threw a 2-yard touchdown pass to Byron Pringle with less than 2 minutes left to put the Chiefs up 14-7. And then Josh Allen threw an 18-yard touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis to tie it up right before they went to half. Going into the third quarter, the Chiefs started off with a field goal from Harrison Butker, and then Mecole Hardman would get a 25-yard run to the end zone, but then they missed the PAT. That put them up 23-14. The Bills would see a 75-yard touchdown pass from Josh Allen to Gabriel Davis to put them down by 2. They were down 23-21 going into the fourth. The Chiefs opened it up with a field goal to put them up 26-21, so they were up 5. And then Josh Allen threw a 27-yard touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis, and then he would throw a 2-point conversion to Stephon Diggs to put them up by 3 with 2 minutes left. And then Patrick Mahomes would throw a 64-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill to put the Chiefs up by 4. They were up 33-29. And then with 13 seconds left, Josh Allen would throw a 19-yard touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis to put the Bills up by a field goal. And then Josh Allen, with 13 seconds left, would get the ball to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce to get the Chiefs in field goal position. And then Harrison Butker would kick a 49-yard field goal in order to tie it, send it into overtime. After winning the coin toss, the Chiefs had it, and then it would end on a 8-yard touchdown pass from Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce to end the Buffalo Bills season just short, considering how much it took for them just to get this far, come so close, and just for their season to end. Looking on the losing end of this matchup in their final matchup of the 2021 campaign, the AFC East champs Buffalo Bills were led by their elite starting quarterback Josh Allen out of Wyoming. He would complete 27 of his 37 passes as he threw for 329 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also ran for 68 yards. He would combine for a total of 397 total yards of offense. He would, like I said, he had 4 total touchdowns on the day. Their leading receiver, Gabriel Davis, had 8 receptions for 201 receiving yards and all 4 of the team's receiving touchdowns. Cole Beasley had 6 receptions for 60 yards. On the defensive side of this matchup, Matt Milano led the team in tackles as he had 11 of them. Teron Johnson finished with 7 tackles as he had a sack. Ed Oliver had 3 tackles as he had the team's other sack. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Kansas City Chiefs were led by their elite starting quarterback, the $500 million man, Patrick Mahomes. He would go on to complete 33 of his 44 passes as he threw for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was also the team's leading rusher. He had 7 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. He would finish with 447 total yards of offense and 4 total touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Hilaire, their first-round draft pick out of LSU, would finish with 7 carries for 60 yards on the ground. He also had 9 yards through the air, so he had 69 total yards of offense. The Chiefs' elite wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, led the team in yards. He had 11 receiving yards for 150 yards and a touchdown. Their elite tight end out of Cincy, Travis Kelce, finished with 8 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. Jerick McKinnon would finish with 24 rushing yards and 54 receiving yards, combining for 78 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, they were led in tackles by Daniel Sorensen and L'Jarius Sneed. They each had 9 tackles. Jaron Reed finished with 6 tackles as he had a sack for himself. Melvin Ingram III would finish with 3 tackles as he had a sack as well. With this win, the Kansas City Chiefs will go into the conference championship round, hosting the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday at 3 o'clock on TBS. Their game will be the first one to decide who will be the first to get their ticket punched to Super Bowl 56 in February. So that's what the NFL is looking like, as the amount of teams going into yesterday was 6, and now coming into today it is 4 as we prepare for a long week. As we prepare for this upcoming weekend of football. Taking a look at what went down in the NBA, starting off in Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks hosted the Los Angeles Clippers. The Knicks beat the Clippers 110-102. The Knicks won this matchup by 8 after they outscored the Clippers by 8 in the first quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Clippers were led in scoring by their starting point guard, Reggie Jackson. He finished with 26 points and 5 assists in 33 minutes. He shot 10 for 18 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. The Clippers starting forward, Ivica Zubac, finished with 17 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 blocks in 29 minutes. He shot 5 for 8 from the field. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown New York Knicks were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Duke, R.J. Barrett. Barrett finished with 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists in 43 minutes. He shot 9 for 24 from the field. He shot 3 for 5 from 3 and a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting power forward out of Kentucky, Julius Randle, their former All-Star, finished with 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists, as well as 7 turnovers in 40 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and he shot 5 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the New York Knicks are now 23-24. That is the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference. They've won 6 of their last 10 games. They sit half a game behind the 8th seed Boston Celtics for the time being. With this loss, the Los Angeles Clippers are now 23-25. That is the 9th best record out west. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games. They sit half a game behind the 8th seed Los Angeles Lakers out west. Jumping out to our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., the Wizards would host the Boston Celtics. The Celtics would beat the Wizards 116-87. The Celtics won this matchup by 29 after they outscored the Wizards by 15 in the first half, and then by an additional 14 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Washington Wizards were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Florida, Bradley Beal. Beal finished with 19 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 31 minutes. He shot 7 for 17 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Boston Celtics were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Jason Tatum. He finished with 51 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists in 33 minutes. He shot 18 for 28 from the field, 9 for 14 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard out of Cal, Jaylen Brown, finished with 18 points and 10 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 5 for 18 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 24-24. That is the 8th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've won 6 of their last 10 games, and they sit 6.5 games behind the Eastern Conference leading Miami Heat. With this loss, the Washington Wizards are now 23-24. They are tied with the New York Knicks for the 10th best record out East. They've lost their last 3 games, which is the longest losing streak in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games. They now sit half a game behind the 8th seed Boston Celtics out East. Taking a look now at what is going down in Miami, the Heat hosted the Los Angeles Lakers. The Miami Heat would beat the Los Angeles Lakers 113-107. The Heat won this matchup by 6 after they outscored the Lakers by 14 points in the first quarter, 17 for the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the LA Lakers were led in scoring by their goated starting small forward, LeBron James. LeBron James finished with 33 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 40 minutes. He shot 12 for 22 from the field, 1 for 8 from 3, and 8 for 11 from the foul line. Their goated starting point guard, Russell Westbrook, out of UCLA, finished with 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 9 for 15 from the field and 6 for 8 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Miami Heat were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Michigan, Duncan Robinson. He finished with 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals in 42 minutes. He shot 8 for 13 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, finished with 20 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists, and 2 steals in 39 minutes. He shot 7 for 18 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Miami Heat are now 30-17. They are the first team in the Eastern Conference to cross the 30-win threshold. They've won 7 of their last 10 games. They sit half a game ahead of the second place Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference. With this loss, the LA Lakers are now 23-24. That is the 8th best record out West. They've lost 5 of their last 10 games, and they sit 14 games behind the first seed Phoenix Suns in the conference. Taking a look at what went down in Orlando just a couple hours north, the Magic hosted the Chicago Bulls. The Magic beat the Bulls 114-95. They won this matchup by 19 after they outscored the Bulls by 12 in the second quarter, by 16 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Chicago Bulls were led in scoring by their starting small forward, DeMar DeRozan, out of USC. He finished with 41 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals in 38 minutes. He shot 15 for 21 from the field and 11 for 13 from the foul line. Their starting point guard out of UNC, Kobe White, finished with 22 points in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 18 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting center, Nikola Vucevic, their former All-Star, finished with 13 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 turnovers as he had 6 fouls in 30 minutes. Before he fouled out, he would shoot 4 for 19 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Orlando Magic would be led in scoring by their center They would be led in scoring by their center off the bench, Mo Wagner. He finished with 23 points in 25 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Orlando Magic are now 9-39. They've won two of their last 10 games as they have the worst record out east. They are the only team in the NBA with a single-digit amount of wins so far this year. And for the time being, they sit 15 games behind the 8th seed Boston Celtics out east. With this loss, the Chicago Bulls are now 28-17. That is the 3rd best record in the East. They've lost their last 2 games, and they've lost 7 of their last 10. They sit a full game behind the 1st seed Miami Heat right now. Taking a look at what's going down north of the border in Toronto, the Raptors hosted the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers would beat the Raptors 114-105. They won this matchup by 9 after they outscored the Raptors by 18 in the first quarter and by 12 in the second. They were up by 30 at halftime. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Toronto Raptors were led in scoring by their starting power forward, Pascal Siakam. Siakam finished with 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists in 38 minutes. He shot 13 for 20 from the field and 2 for 4 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Portland Trailblazers were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Nasir Little out of UNC, their starting shooting guard, CJ McCollum, and their other starting shooting guard, Anthony Simons. Nasir Little finished with 19 points and 7 rebounds in 39 minutes. He shot 8 for 11 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. CJ McCollum finished with 19 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 5 turnovers in 38 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field and 3 for 5 from 3. Simons finished with 19 points and 5 assists, as well as 6 turnovers in 37 minutes. He shot 6 for 8 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their starting center, Yusuf Nurkic, finished with 11 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 31 minutes. He shot 5 for 9 from the field. With this win, the Portland Trailblazers are now 20-26. That is the 10th best record in the West. They've won their last 2 games, and they've won 6 of their last 10. They sit 2.5 games behind the 8th seed LA Lakers out west. With this loss, the Toronto Raptors are now 22-22. That is the 9th best record out east. They've lost 5 of their last 10 games. They sit even with the 8th seed Boston Celtics out east right now, as they have 2 less wins and 2 less losses. Both they and the Celtics are sitting at 500. Taking a look at what's going down in Charlotte, the Hornets hosted the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks would beat the Hornets 113-91, as the Hawks are red hot right now. The Hawks would win this game by 22 after they outscored the Hornets by 11 in the first half and then by 11 in the second half as well. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Hornets were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Miles Bridges, and their elite starting point guard and last year's Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball. Bridges finished with 19 points and 6 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 8 for 13 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. LaMelo Ball finished with 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in 34 minutes. Ball will go on to shoot 6 for 17 from the field and a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Atlanta Hawks were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard, Trae Young. He finished with 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 9 for 20 from the field, 8 for 15 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. Their starting small forward out of Virginia, DeAndre Hunter, finished with 20 points and 3 steals in 34 minutes. He shot 6 for 11 from the field and 7 for 9 from the foul line. With this win, the Atlanta Hawks are now 21-25. That is the 4th worst record in the Eastern Conference. They've won their last 4 games, and they've won 5 of their last 10. They currently sit 2 games behind the 8th seed Boston Celtics out east. With this loss, the Charlotte Hornets are now 26-21. That is the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 3 of their last 10. They sit 4 games behind the 1st seed Miami Heat. Taking a look at what's going down in San Antonio, the Spurs hosted the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers were able to beat the Spurs 115-109. They won this matchup by 6 after they outscored the Spurs by 6 in both the first and second quarters. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown San Antonio Spurs were led in scoring by their starting center out of Utah, Jakob Poeltl. Poeltl finished with 25 points and 10 rebounds as well as 4 blocks. All of this in 39 minutes as he shot 11 for 16 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, DeJounte Murray, finished with 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 12 assists in 38 minutes. He shot 6 for 14 from the field, and he shot 7 for 10 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers were led in scoring by their elite starting center, Joel Embiid. He finished with 38 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 16 for 32 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and he shot 5 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting power forward out of Tennessee, Tobias Harris, finished with 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 6 for 13 from the field and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 27-19. That is the sixth best record in the Eastern Conference. They've won 7 of their last 10. They sit 2.5 games behind the first seed Miami Heat. With this loss, the San Antonio Spurs are 17-30. That is the third worst record in the West. They've lost their last 2 games, and they've lost 8 of their last 10. They sit 6 games behind the 8th seed LA Lakers in the Western Conference. Staying within the state, the Dallas Mavericks hosted the Memphis Grizzlies. The Mavericks beat the Grizzlies 104-91. They won this matchup by 13 after they outscored the Grizzlies by 8 in the first quarter and by 6 in the second, by 14 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Memphis Grizzlies were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard, Ja Morant. He finished with 35 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, and 7 turnovers, all in 41 minutes. He shot 14 for 31 from the field and 7 for 10 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Dallas Mavericks were led in scoring by their starting point guard, their elite starting point guard out of Slovenia, Luka Doncic. He will go on to finish with 37 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, and 5 turnovers in 38 minutes. He shot 13 for 25 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and 9 for 12 from the foul line. With this win, the Dallas Mavericks are now 27-20. That is the 5th best record in the West. They've won 8 of their last 10 games, and they sit 10 games behind the first seed Phoenix Suns out west. With this loss, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 32-17. That is now the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. They've lost only 3 of their last 10 games. They sit 6 games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns. Taking a look at what went down in Minneapolis, the Timberwolves hosted the Brooklyn Nets. The Timberwolves beat the Nets 136-125. They won this matchup by 11 after they outscored Brooklyn by 11 in the second quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Brooklyn Nets were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard out of Duke, Kyrie Irving. He finished with 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 11 for 20 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Their starting point guard out of Australia, Patty Mills, finished with 21 points in 33 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field and 5 for 10 from 3. Their elite starting shooting guard, James Harden, finished with 13 points, 5 rebounds, 13 assists, and 6 turnovers in 35 minutes. He shot 4 for 13 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 for the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Minnesota Timberwolves were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward out of Georgia, Anthony Edwards. He finished with 25 points and 2 steals in 31 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. Their elite starting center out of Kentucky, Karl Anthony Towns, finished with 23 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 32 minutes. He shot 7 for 18 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and 7 for 9 from the foul line. Their starting point guard out of Ohio State, D'Angelo Russell, finished with 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 23-23. That is the 7th best record in the West. They've won 7 of their last 10. They sit 13.5 games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns. With this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 29-17. That is the 2nd best record in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 5 of their last 10 games. They sit half a game behind the Eastern Conference leading Miami Heat out east. Taking a look at what went down in the Mile High City, the Denver Nuggets hosted the Detroit Pistons. The Nuggets beat the Pistons 117-111. The Nuggets won this matchup by 6 after they outscored the Pistons by 16 in the third. On the losing end of this matchup, the Detroit Pistons were led in scoring by their starting center, Isaiah Stewart, their starting point guard, Corey Joseph, their other starting point guard, who was the number 1 overall pick in last year's draft, Cade Cunningham, and their power forward off the bench, Trey Lyles. They all had 18 points. Isaiah Stewart finished with 18 points, and as he fouled out in 27 minutes. He shot a perfect 8 for 8 from the field. He made his only three-point attempt of the day, and he made his only free throw attempt as well. He did not miss a shot in regulation. Corey Joseph finished with 18 points and 6 assists in 28 minutes as he shot 7 for 9 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Cade Cunningham finished with 18 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 6 turnovers in 36 minutes. He shot 7 for 15 from the field and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Their power forward off the bench, Trey Lyles, finished with 18 points and 5 rebounds in 21 minutes. He shot 6 for 11 from the field. And on the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Denver Nuggets were led in scoring by their elite starting center, Nikola Vucevic. He would go on to finish with 34 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals in 36 minutes. He went on to shoot 12 for 19 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and 9 for 10 from the foul line. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are now 24-21. That is the 6th best record in the Western Conference. They've won 6 of their last 10 games. They sit 12 games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns. With this loss, the Detroit Pistons are now 11-35. That is the 2nd worst record in the Eastern Conference. They've lost their last 2 games, and they've lost 6 of their last 10. They currently sit 12 games behind the 8 seed Boston Celtics right now. Taking a look, last but not least, at what went down in San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors hosted the Utah Jazz. The Warriors would beat the Jazz 94-92 despite scoring only 11 points in the fourth. They did outscore the Jazz by 7 in the third to win this game by 2. On the losing end of this matchup, the Utah Jazz were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic. He finished with 21 points and 8 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 7 for 17 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Their elite starting center, Rudy Gobert out of France, finished with 12 points, 18 rebounds, and 3 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 5 for 10 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Golden State Warriors were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Jordan Poole. He finished with 20 points in 34 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their go-to starting point guard, Stephen Curry, finished with 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 5 for 20 from the field, 1 for 13 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Golden State Warriors are now 34-13. That is the 2nd best record in the West and the 2nd best record in the NBA for that matter. They've won their last 2 games and they've won 5 of their last 10. They sit 3 games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns. With this loss, the Utah Jazz are now 30-17. That is the 4th best record in the West, and they are tied with the Heat for the 4th best record in the NBA. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games, and they now sit 7 games behind the 1st seed Phoenix Suns out west. So that is what the NBA is looking like following yesterday's matchups. Taking a look at what is going on with the NBA today as we are navigating through the NBA a day at a time. The lone primetime game is going to be at 9 o'clock as the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns are going to host the Utah Jazz. The Jazz are currently holding the 4th best record out west. Looking at the games that aren't on primetime at 7 o'clock, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to host the New York Knicks in the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. At 8 o'clock, the New Orleans Pelicans are going to host the Indiana Pacers in the Smoothie King Center. And at the same time, the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to host the Chicago Bulls at Paycom Center. And then taking a look at what's going on in the world of soccer, starting off with the African Cup of Nations as we are in the round of 16, as now there are 14 teams left competing. Starting off with Burkina Faso, who would make it into this nation made it into the stage, finishing 2nd in Group A. They would host Gabon. Gabon made it to this round after finishing 2nd in Group C. Burkina Faso would end up drawing with Gabon 1-1 as Bertrand Traore would put Burkina Faso up 1-0 in the 28th minute. Gabon would tie it up in the 91st off of a Burkina Faso own goal in the 91st minute after they picked up a red card. Burkina Faso would end up advancing on penalty kicks. They won it 7-6. Their penalty kick was made by Ismailia Ouedraogo, as Burkina Faso were the very first team to punch their ticket to the quarterfinal round. And then, of course, looking at the second round of 16 matchup that took place here, this took place between Nigeria and Tunisia. Nigeria entered this matchup as they were the lone team in group stage that won all three of their matchups. They finished at the top of Group D. Tunisia made it to this round after Tunisia finished third in Group F after they won one and lost two of their group stage matchups. Tunisia would end up beating Nigeria 1-0. Tunisia would pick up the first goal in the 47th minute off of Yusuf and Masakni's goal. Nigeria would pick up a red card in the 66th minute. It was Alex Iwobi. And after that, Tunisia would be the second team that would punch their ticket. And I think a lot of people bet on Nigeria, and a lot of people lost their money following that matchup. Taking a look at what's going on in the other leagues, starting off or jumping to the Premier League, the Arsenal Football Club will go on to host Burnley. Those teams would end up drawing at 0. With this draw, Arsenal sits 6th in the Premier League. They sit even with Tottenham with one more game played than Tottenham. And they sit 1 point behind 5th place West Ham, as they've played one less game than West Ham. Liverpool would go on to face Crystal Palace at Crystal Palace, and they would beat Crystal Palace 3-1. Their 8th-minute goal will come from Virgil van Dijk, their elite defender out of the Netherlands. Their 32nd-minute goal will come from Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. And then Fabinho's 85th-minute penalty would be all they need, especially because they're missing some of their best players at AFCON for the moment. With this win, Liverpool sits second in the Premier League. They sit 9 points behind first-place Man City, as they've played one less game than Man City. They still have a lot of ground to make up, but it was still a worthwhile win for them. Chelsea would host Tottenham Hotspur, and in this London derby, Chelsea would beat Tottenham 2-0. Their first goal came in the 47th minute. It was one of the most beautiful goals you'll ever see by Hakim Ziyech in the 47th minute. And then in the 55th minute, they would get a goal from Thiago Silva, their midfielder from Brazil. And with this win, Chelsea now sits third in the Premier League, 1 point behind Liverpool with 2 more games played than Liverpool. They sit 10 points behind Man City with 1 more game played than Man City, but right now they're comfortably in the top 3. And taking a look at what went down in Spanish La Liga, Real Madrid drew with Elche 2-2, as Elche scored their first 2 goals in the 42nd and 76th minute. Real Madrid's first goal will be a penalty kick from their elite Croatian midfielder Luka Modric in the 82nd minute, and then they would end up scoring in the 92nd minute from their defender Militao. With this draw, Real Madrid is currently still sitting on top of La Liga, 4 points ahead of second place Sevilla, as that's where they're sitting, 50-46 for the time being. Barcelona would end up going to Alaves and pulling off the 1-0 win. Their lone goal coming in the 87th minute from their Dutch midfielder, Frankie de Jong. With this win, Barcelona is now 5th in La Liga. They sit 1 point behind 4th place Atletico Madrid. Looking at what's going on in the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich would go to Berlin and beat Hertha Berlin 4-1. Their first goal will come in the 25th minute from their French midfielder Corentin Tolisso. Their second goal came in the 45th minute from their goated German midfielder Thomas Müller. Their third goal came in the 75th minute from their elite German winger Leroy Sané, as he had an amazing goal from outside the box. Their fourth goal came from their other elite winger Serge Gnabry, and then Berlin's lone goal came in the 85th minute from Eklenkamp. And taking a look at what went down in Serie A, Juventus would end up drawing with AC Milan 0-0. With this draw, Milan now is sitting tied with Napoli, and Juventus is sitting 5th, 1 point below 4th place Atalanta. Speaking of Napoli, they were able to pull off a 4-1 win at Salernitana. Their goals coming from Jesus, Mertens, Ramani, and Insigne, all in the first 53 minutes of the game. So that is how the Serie A is shaping up for now following yesterday's matchups. Not to mention, PSG pulled off a 4-0 win at home. Their goals coming from Verratti, their Italian midfielder, their goated Spanish defender Sergio Ramos scoring his first Ligue 1 goal with PSG. Fais scored the own goal for Stade Rennes for their third one, and then Pereira scored in the 75th minute. With this win, PSG is now sitting on top of Ligue 1, 11 points ahead of second place Nice. And taking a look at what's going on with today's matchups, looking at the African Cup of Nations, Guinea is going to face off against Gambia. Guinea made it into this matchup after finishing second in Group B, 1 point behind Senegal. Gambia made it here after they finished second in Group F as they finished right behind Mali. And their second matchup that's going to be taking place today will be at 2 o'clock as Cameroon will be facing off against the Comoros Islands. Cameroon making it here after they finished at the top of Group A, 3 points ahead of Burkina Faso. And then Comoros Islands making it here after they finished third in Group C. They finished 4 points behind first place Morocco. By the end of today, there will be 12 teams left competing in the African Cup of Nations. And with that said, that is everything that I have for you today. I want to thank the ESPN, NCAA, NFL, NBA, and FIFA websites for giving me all the facts and figures that I need. And once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm going to come back tomorrow on Tuesday, January 25th for another episode of The Elite. And until then, I hope all is well. And I want to thank you all once again for listening. And I'll catch you with another episode of this piece tomorrow. I hope all is well. And I will follow it up with 2 individual profiles after this. So, of course, stay tuned. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace out.